Massive backlash against President Trump for his J6 pardons. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, a lot to talk about today. Believe me, jam-packed show for you today. But I got to tell you, one of the big stories. It is an absolutely ferocious backlash by the entire establishment, corrupt media. Fake news media is going bananas over Trump's sweeping pardons of about 1,500 J6ers. But it's not just the media. Democrats and many rhino Republicans are on the warpath, saying that what Trump did was unforgivable. They say it is already a stain on his presidency. And I kid you not, they're now saying that Trump is inciting violence. I'm not inciting violence by pardoning the J6ers. So, as you know, President Trump, really, it's been a couple of years now, on the campaign trail, pledged, vowed, promised repeatedly that he would pardon, if not all, most of the J6ers, rightly arguing that many of them are completely innocent of anything, and those that did breach the Capitol or did assault police officers or engage in any kind of vandalism have been excessively punished, outrageously punished. As he said it, brutally punished. Many of them getting 5-year, 7-year, 10-year, some 18 and 23-year prison terms over essentially nothing. That in most other cases, you would see a year in jail, 18 months in jail, or a fine. So President Trump said most of these people were not even given proper due process. Most of them were railroaded by a corrupt Department of Justice that was desperately seeking to politically persecute Trump's supporters and to turn January 6th. And you remember, this was the mantra for years and years under Biden, that it was not just an attack allegedly on the Capitol. It was an attack on our very democracy, an attack on America itself, the worst attack, according to Biden and Merrick Garland and his corrupt Department of Justice, worse than 9/11, worse than Pearl Harbor, worse than anything since the Civil War. And so to make an example out of these J6ers, and to frame Trump as an insurrectionist, as the architect of terrorism. That's what they were ultimately hoping to get out of this. To disqualify and permanently discredit Trump. They unleashed the dogs at the DOJ. And over 1,000 J6ers have been rotting in that gulag in Washington in utterly inhumane, dirty, filthy conditions. Some have been there for years and still have faced no charges, never mind a trial. Trump said enough is enough. And so one of his very first acts, and God bless him for it, was to wipe the slate clean. And so he granted an unconditional, sweeping pardon to almost every J6er, about 1,500, about 14, over a dozen, had their sentences commuted. In other words, clemency, they're going to be out of jail, but their record hasn't been expunged yet. Trump says he wants to look at those commutations and see whether he wants to turn it into a full pardon on a case-by-case basis. But in essence, every J6er is either home or on their way to coming home. And the media, the Democrats, the swamp, and many rhinos are going apoplectic. Listen now to a reporter going right after Trump. Trump held his first press conference yesterday, and already all they could talk about was J6, and the pardons. Roll cut one, Mike.
Among those you pardoned, DJ Rodriguez, he drove a stun gun into the neck of a D.C. police officer who was abducted by the mob that day. He later confessed on video to the FBI and pleaded guilty for his crimes. Why does he deserve a pardon?
Well, I don't know. Was it a pardon? Because we're looking at commutes and we're looking at pardons. Okay, well, we'll take a look at everything. But I can say this. Murderers today are not even charged. You have murderers that aren't charged all over. You take a look at what's gone on in Philadelphia. You take a look at what's gone off in L.A., where people murder people and they don't get charged. These people have already served years in prison. And they've served them viciously. It's a disgusting prison. It's been horrible. It's inhumane. It's been a terrible, terrible thing.
He's completely right. Absolutely, completely right. You know, first of all, there's many ways to refute these arguments because they're pathetic. But one of them, and Trump just nailed it, is, so hold on, let me get this straight. You unleash the Soros-backed district attorneys across the entire country, where you whole categories of crimes you just don't even prosecute. You don't prosecute drug dealing. You don't prosecute shoplifting. You don't prosecute burglary. By the way, assaulting police officers, resisting arrest, you don't prosecute that. Now, even many murders you let go. So, on the one hand, you're praising these get-out-of-jail-free cards that you give to criminals on a daily basis in the biggest cities and the biggest blue states in the country. But suddenly now you're going on about DJ Rodriguez, who allegedly attacked a police officer in the back with a stun gun. Suddenly now that's the crime of the century. And by the way, he's been in jail. It's not like the guy got a slap on the wrist. But does he deserve 7 years in jail? That's the point. Now, furthermore, and Trump, I thought destroyed the media brilliantly by saying, whoa. What about the Summer of Love? What about the George Floyd riots, the BLM Antifa riots during 2020, where literally they rioted against the police, calling for the overturning of the police, the defunding of the police, where nearly 1,000 police officers, some were shot, others were murdered, others were maimed and blinded, where they literally rampaged and rioted and burned city after city to the ground. Portland, Seattle, Kenosha, Boston, New York, Chicago, Atlanta, L.A., did you guys complain then? Most of those people who rioted and murdered and maimed and burned, nothing. Nobody went to jail. Nobody was held accountable. Billions of dollars in property damage. 36 innocent civilians dead, including, by the way, police officers. So all of a sudden now, you guys bleed for the cops on Capitol Hill? Now, don't get me wrong. You never assault a police officer. But you're talking about pepper spray. They're giving people who pepper sprayed police as they were, there was scuffles and fights breaking out. 7-year sentences. 5, 6, 7, 8-year sentences for pepper spray. You never pepper spray a police officer. You don't get that for rape in many parts of the country. You don't get that for murder. And all of a sudden you pepper spray a police officer and that deserves 5, 6, 7, 8 years? So, no. What's sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Listen now to Trump saying, don't lecture me about J6. Why don't you look at the 2020 George Floyd riots and Black Lives Matter and Antifa? And you and the media backed them all the way. You weren't crying for the police then. Roll cut 1A, Mike.
I also say this. You go to Portland, where they wrapped police officers, shot police officers, nothing happened to anybody. You go to Seattle, where they took over a big chunk of the city and people died. Portland, a lot of people died. Wait a minute. And you go also take a look at Minneapolis, because I was there and I watched it. And if I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city wouldn't even exist today. People were killed and nobody went to jail. So these people have already served a long period of time, and I made a decision to give a pardon. Joe Biden gave a pardon yesterday to a lot of criminals. These are criminals that he gave a pardon to, and you should be asking that question.
No, well, they won't. They don't care. That's the other thing. The media is not mentioning the pardons for Milley or Fauci or Liz Cheney or Benny Thompson, the chair of that joke of a January 6th select committee. Never mind the pardons for his crime family, Frankie and Jimmy and his sister Valerie and spouses. And so, no, it's all January 6th. My friends, let me ask you. The media is now saying, Democrats and many establishment Republicans, that Trump should have never given blanket pardons to the J6ers, that this is a stain on his presidency. Do you agree? Your calls next. Barely 48 hours in office and already the resistance. The resistance now is going after Trump. 620 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Now they're going after him for his pardons, his sweeping blanket pardons for practically every J6er. As I said, about maybe just over a dozen, 14, were given commutations. In fact, some of them I'm going to get into a little bit later in the show clearly deserved the commutations. But anyway, most 99.99999% got pardons, a few got commutations, and the left is going absolutely insane. There's no other way to put it. Listen now. This is Jamie Raskin. You remember him from the J6 committee. He is the one that tried to do everything possible to prevent Trump from being certified. Well, Raskin received a pardon from Joe Biden. So, but that doesn't matter. He can get a pardon, and that's fine. But don't pardon the J6ers. Listen now to Raskin saying, you want to know why Trump pardoned all these J6ers? He's fomenting a terrorist movement. I swear to you. Roll cut 15. Mike.
If President Trump had come forward and said, we've spoken to these people, they are not going to be attacking police officers in the future the way that they bloodied and wounded and hospitalized 140 of them in Washington, D.C. They are not going to be attacking the rule of law and democratic institutions. They are not going to be interrupting the peaceful transfer of power, and they're not going to be a threat to their communities. We haven't heard anything like that. So then the question is, why are they being released? Are they being released as a reserve army of political foot soldiers to act on behalf of MAGA and Donald Trump? And I think that's what's so profoundly troubling to a majority of the American people who rejected the idea of freeing at least the violent criminals and the ones who were convicted of seditious conspiracy, which means conspiracy to overthrow the government.
I mean, this is unbelievable. I mean, this is really, and by the way, I'm going to tell you who the people they claimed were engaged in a seditious conspiracy to overthrow the government. Yeah. Several thousand miles away. I'm not kidding. Yeah. So that's the leader of the Proud Boys. That's what they got him on. Enrique Tarrio, who wasn't even in D.C., wasn't even in the vicinity of D.C. on January 6, 2021. And they put him in jail for 23 years. Okay, they sentenced him to 23 years. And he did nothing. He literally did nothing. Except, make some statements on the internet and some emails and text messages. And for this is conspiracy. Oh my God. He was going to overthrow the whole government and help install himself as a leader of a militia. I mean, this was the most ridiculous, pathological, politicized persecution. Forget prosecution, persecution in American history. And Trump looked at this and said, who did this man hurt? Did he enter the Capitol? No. Did he breach the Capitol? No. Did he assault anybody? No. Was he even in Washington, D.C.? No. He was literally thousands of miles away. And this guy's going to be rotting in jail for 23 years? I'm commuting. Bye. Bye. He's going to be a free man. Out. He's out. Out of jail. And they're going on. This is his political foot soldiers. He's creating a MAGA terrorist army. They're utterly unhinged and pathetic. And my friends, this is the thing that I find most disturbing of all, is that here you had Joe Biden brazenly, shamelessly, openly pardon his son, his degenerate son, convicted of gun and tax charges, and then do a preemptive pardon for 10 years. And he does the exact same preemptive pardon for his corrupt brothers, who are his bag men, his corrupt sister, his bag woman, and their spouses, who are also hatchet men and hatchet women for Biden, who used secret shadow accounts in which millions of dollars flowed from foreign sources, from the Chinese, from the Ukrainians, from the Romanians, from the Kazakhs. Just bang, shazam, they just showed up in their bank accounts. And starting January of 2014, that's why he made those pardons retroactive. And of course, that was tens and tens of millions that went into the Biden crime family, 10% for the big guy, where Joe Biden sold out the United States, sold out our foreign policy to foreign powers and foreign actors. And he gives his corrupt family a blanket, unconditional, preemptive pardon. No problem. No problem. The media won't even discuss it. Innocent people rotting in a gulag simply because they were there on January 6th. Many of them, in fact, the overwhelming majority, nonviolent offenders who were outside the Capitol. They didn't even walk into the Capitol. And Trump says, no, I'm undoing this. This is a blatant injustice. And they're going crazy over this? No way. No way. Trump was right to pardon every J6er. What say you? 6:30 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Should Trump have issued blanket pardons to the J6ers? Again, about a dozen, 14, I think. Just over a dozen had their sentences commuted, not pardoned. So they're out of jail, but they still have a criminal record. But for the most part, about 99.999999%, 1,500, about approximately 1,500 J6ers have been given full sweeping pardons. The left is melting down. Many rhinos on Capitol Hill are upset. The media is in a frenzy, absolute frenzy. Now, let me just put an exclamation point to this. Yes, the pardons for Milley and Fauci and the J6 committee and his own corrupt criminal family have gotten, and rightly so, a lot of attention on this show. But people forget, Joe Biden at the end, by the way, no president pardoned more people. It's not even close. And what I mean by not even close, I think Trump pardoned about 100, 150 people. Joe Biden has pardoned 8,000 people. No one has abused the pardon power more than Joe Biden, okay, than Joey. The overwhelming majority of the people that he pardoned literally were fentanyl dealers, heroin, cocaine traffickers, rapists, murderers, who now are going to go back on the streets and either murder again or deal again, meaning they're going to kill many more Americans. But let me just give you one, okay? This one, I remember this all the way back in the 1980s when I was a teenager. Leonard Peltier, cause célèbre on the radical left going back 40 years. By the way, Elizabeth Warren, I swear to you, the chief, I guess she kind of felt like, he was one of her people because Leonard Peltier is a Native American Indian. And he was part of the radical indigenous activist, indigenous rights movement that got very violent and militant in the 1970s. Long story short, it was a huge story at the time. Leonard Peltier, on an Indian reservation in South Dakota, planned, orchestrated, and participated in the ambush of 2 FBI agents in which they were both shot stone cold in the face. Both FBI agents were murdered at the hands of Leonard Peltier and his supporters. Peltier is guilty as sin. Now, I'm not talking about pepper spraying a police officer. I'm not talking about carrying a flagpole. I'm not talking about breaking a window at the Capitol, because that's pretty much the most extreme examples of violence that the left could find regarding January 6th. I'm talking about boom, 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 point blank, right to the head. 2 FBI agents dead, murdered by him and his supporters. Joe Biden issued a commutation to Leonard Peltier at the age of 80. Under pressure from Elizabeth Warren, well, because, Chief Fullabull has to defend her people. And the likes of Ed Markey, and the likes of AOC, and the likes of Bernie Sanders, because they see him as a martyr for the Native American Indian cause, even though he's a cop killer and brutally murdered 2 FBI agents. Now, he's going to spend the rest of his days at home, in the comfort of his home. And the families of the 2 FBI agents were absolutely outraged and said, you want to talk about the ultimate betrayal? I lost my husband. My children lost their father. We haven't seen them and we never will see them again. And yet this man walks away scot-free to live in luxury for the rest of his life? Because the radical left made him a martyr? You don't hear the media complaining about that. You see, then they're not for the blue. Then they don't talk about, we got to protect our police officers. This is outrageous. No. That's okay. But if you're a J6er, they want you to rot in jail for the rest of your life. And Trump said, "Niet, no." And God bless him for it. These pardons weren't just the moral thing to do, the right thing to do. They were the American thing to do. Agree, disagree. Lawrence and Shrewsbury. You're going to kick us off, Lawrence. Thanks for holding and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Lawrence?
I'm doing great. I want to thank you for highlighting this wonderful decision on behalf of President Trump. I was there on January 6th. I was part of the mostly, almost entirely peaceful crowd that day. I was part of tens of thousands of people who had attended the speech that Trump gave at the Ellipse and then walked over to the Capitol after getting through some tear gas that came from who knows where. We got up onto the steps at the base of the Capitol, and we were just chanting and singing, and we didn't do anything violent like 99% of my fellow people there that day. And I don't know who those people were that committed the violence, but they weren't with us. They were not with us. So this whole thing about jailing the people who were there was always wrong, and this is a wonderful thing that Trump has done.
Well, and Lawrence, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, just to underscore how right you are. Notice no one wants a full investigation of January 6th. See, that's why the J6 committee had to destroy all these documents, because they knew there was evidence that exonerated not just and exculpated Trump, but exculpated all of the J6ers. Because what they know and what they're afraid the public's going to find out. Sorry, I'm battling a bit of a cold, Lawrence, so I'm my throat's a bit scratchy. What they don't want the public to find out, Lawrence, is that the police on Capitol Hill were given direct orders to let the crowd in. They opened the big iron door. It can only be opened from the outside. Otherwise, the Capitol is impenetrable. So who gave the order to open that vast door? Who gave the order to the police to pull back the barricades? You could see them pulling it back and waving their hands like, come in, come in, come in, come in. And then simultaneously, as they were waving the crowd in and say, come on in, opening the doors, waving them in, you can see the video footage. There were Capitol Hill police stationed on the top of the Capitol building, on the roof, with rubber bullets. And they were given orders to shoot into the crowd. See, that's another part. People say, well, why were they scuffling with police? They were scuffling with police, and you can see the video doesn't lie. One guy's cheek got a hole. I mean, literally, the rubber bullet went right through the guy's cheek, into his mouth. You had people getting picked off by rubber bullets, and they're like, why are they shooting on us? Why are they shooting on us? And that's when the scuffles broke out with the police. So my point is, whoever was behind this, and I'm telling you it was Pelosi and Mitch McConnell and the CIA and people who wanted Trump out. I think there's no question. They wanted an incident that day. Because, Lawrence, their big fear was that, remember, Senator Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Marsha Blackburn were lining up in the Senate to make their case about how the states of Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin had been stolen during the election. They were going to make their case that there was rampant voter fraud, irrefutable voter fraud, and the whole country would be watching. They never wanted that to happen. So they needed a false flag. That's what was January 6th. That's why they opened those doors. That's why they invited the crowd in. That's why they fired at the crowd. They wanted something violent to happen that day and then frame Trump. What say you, Lawrence?
Well, I'll add that, as you know, Trump had requested National Guard that day, and Pelosi and the mayor of D.C. refused to do it, because that was part of their plan, to make sure there was no way to, no presence to stop the rioting from getting out of control.
Lawrence, what they're saying now, and you tell me because you were there, you were an eyewitness to all this, that why Trump is pardoning about 1,500, give or take, is because he's creating now a political army, political foot soldiers. In fact, I'll play Cory Booker on the other side in the next segment. Cory Booker now came out and said, these are going to be his militia, his terrorists. That what Trump is now doing is these are his brown shirts. That this is why he's pardoning them. I mean, they have no evidence, and he's putting together now his own private army, these J6, the grandmothers. The grandmothers now are going to put on a swastika, and they're going to pledge to defend Trump and be like his modern day version of the brown shirts. What say you, Lawrence?
It's completely ridiculous. We were all just individuals. There were some organizations involved, of course, but they were a minority. We were just average people who came there. We knew, like you said, about the stealing going on in Pennsylvania, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, and we had heard enough. We'd seen enough of the dumb, stupid ballot counting over and over again and blocking the view of the people and throwing out observers and everything. We knew about all the stories of cheating that had gone on, and we were just there to peacefully protest. All of the violence was either instigated, as you say, or done by false flaggers. it was ridiculous. And the notion that we're going to suddenly form some kind of citizen army, whatever, it's ridiculous.
They're insane. They're insane. Lawrence, I'm telling you, they're insane. Lawrence, thank you very much for calling, for your patriotism. And I agree with you, not 100, 1,000%. Trump did the right thing, and God bless him for it. Agree, disagree, your calls next. 6:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, the media now, frankly, shocked at the flurry of executive orders, the all-out blitz. They are reeling. The Democrats are reeling. Trump clearly now has the initiative, and so they're trying now to lash out at Trump. And they're using the J6 pardons as the hook to try to go after him. Listen now to Democrat Moonbat, Senator Cory Booker. According to Raskin, Trump is now pardoning these J6ers to create his private militia, his political foot soldiers. Cory Booker says, no, it's even worse than that. Roll cut 16, Mike.
He's basically saying, if I incite you to riot, if I don't get my way, if I lose in the democratic fashion, I'm going to send you to do things that are anti-democratic. And if you attack the Capitol, if you stop the peaceful transfer of power, if you stop the workings of Congress, if you attack violently police officers with stun guns to the neck, with batons to the head, if you crush spines and skulls, then I am going to, don't worry about it, you're doing it in my name, for my benefit, I'm just going to pardon you. What he is doing right now is creating a pretext for more political violence in our country in his name. And that is terrifying. That is what extremists in other countries do. And so this was not just pardoning people that attacked and inflicted injuries that led to the death of police officers like Brian Sicknick, but he also did it in the political context of saying, you were fighting for Trump, and so I'm going to use my power to pardon you.
Again, Hitler. That's what that's the underlying implication is it's Hitler. Hitler, brown shirts, his own private militia, unleashed terror on the country by pardoning these J6ers. Look, the guy's completely unhinged. By the way, Brian Sicknick's family he died of a heart attack. Brian Sicknick's family came out and said it had nothing to do with J6. Brian Sicknick, by the way, was a Trump supporter. And they said again and again, it had nothing to do with the events of January 6th. So again, Booker is lying. And as for crushed spines and crushed skulls, the only people that got crushed were Ashley Babbitt, shot in the neck, a Trump supporter, Roseanne Boylan, who was beaten to death viciously by a Capitol police officer on the steps of the Capitol. Yes, she had her skull smashed. Yes, her spine was crushed. Yes. And two other Trump supporters who were sent to the emergency room and later died in hospital. 4 people died that day. They were all Trump supporters. So I don't know what these people are talking about. 617-266-6868. Larry in Leominster. Thanks for holding, Larry, and welcome.
Jeff.
Hi, Larry.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. Do you know how to get a hold of Al Gore? Can he come and get all this global warming out of my backyard?
You know,
torture on my dog.
Larry, I swear, you and I think alike. I'm in my car this morning, at about 3:30 in the morning, and it's -1 degree Fahrenheit. And I say to myself, where's Al Gore? When you need him. But anyway, Larry, what do you make of Trump pardoning the J6ers and the complete backlash, the blowback from the media, from Democrats, and frankly, from even many establishment Republicans?
Well, the establishment Republicans need to be reminded by Elon how easily they can be replaced. And that should shut them up. Remind them that he will primary anyone that steps out of line. Or, he won't himself, but he'll back any primary. There's a sheriff, I cannot remember his name for the life of me, in Florida. He's phenomenal. When they arrest folks and stings and different things like that, he will put the guy's picture up, or the girl's, and explain exactly what they did and why they had to arrest them, right? So this is what I don't recommend Trump do it himself, because he's got more important things to do. Get himself a spokesman and go through each of those 8,000 pardons and commutations of killers, rapists, and all this, and get their photos and put them up and explain exactly who Biden pardoned every day. Pick a horrendous person every day, and then compare it to the crimes of, air quote, crimes of the J6ers, and let the media sort that out.
Oh, it'd be devastating. No, Larry, you're right. If you did a compare and contrast, I mean, the media would have egg all over their face. I mean, frankly, they look like school children, like kindergarten kids, whining and complaining about the so-called J6ers and, you know, the crimes, quote unquote, of the J6ers. Larry, I'm just curious. The argument now, the Wall Street Journal, okay, came out with a big editorial. It's in this morning's paper. They're the voice of the establishment Republicans, coming out and saying, how dare Republicans now claim they're the party that backs the blue, the party of law and order, the party of the rule of law, when Trump has just pardoned, according to them, 1,500 J6ers, who they say many of them assaulted police officers, engaged in violence, lawlessness, tried to obstruct an official government proceeding, that Trump is now exposing Republicans as hypocrites when it comes to issues like defending the police and law and order. What say you, Larry?
And they can't understand why print media and legacy media is on the way out and dying. That's it, you know? They keep, well, just like you had Cori Bush in that argument, and I think Raskin, the same stuff. Cops died, this and that, they killed cops and stuff like that. No one's buying this anymore. That's the fun part, you know? They can scream and holler and do all this stuff. Like this whole thing with Musk and the so-called Nazi salute. When you got the ADL coming out and saying, stop being idiots, he wasn't making a Nazi salute, you've got a problem. Their problem is they're screaming and clawing, trying to get back to relevancy. And the general public's going, you guys have been lying to us for years. We're done. Shut up.
I'm with you. Larry, as you nailed it. Just basically now I think you're right. Just to the media, shut up. Really, just shut up. Because you have no credibility left because you're all a bunch of liars. You lie about everything, including about January 6th. Larry, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Dan in let's go to Dave first. Dave in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Dave, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Dave.
Jeff, Trump did the right thing all the way around. And the whole thing is, Jeff, Biden pardoned everybody who was doing everything wrong, the murderers, the cokeheads, the drug dealers, and this whole corruption that was been going on for the past 4 years. But yet Trump lets all these people out who didn't do a thing other than just go to express their human rights because they seen what was going on. And also, Jeff, some of the best things that Trump did with his signatures, he letting all the servicemen who got kicked out for not getting the jab, giving them all back pay. And also, at the same time, Jeff, I got a question. Because of everything that's going on, can't Trump do something about the military, get all these pansies out who are just in the service now saying that they're going to get a free sex change with the transgender situation going on. You got Elizabeth Warren on there saying, we're going to back their rights. You got Molly Heady. You got Michelle, who is it? Chief Spreading Bull saying, they got their rights of the transgender and everything on the news. Jeff, something's got to be done.
Well, Dave,
like Trump said.
Oh, no, you're completely right. No, look, Dave, Trump is firing people left, right, and as we speak, he's already cleaning out the bureaucracy. That's why they're fighting tooth and nail to block Hegseth. And I'm going to get to this, if I have time, either later in the show today, definitely tomorrow. They've just come up at the 11th hour because just very quick, I don't want to get sidetracked. Hegseth made it through the committee confirmation vote, the Senate Armed Services Committee, 14-13. It was along party lines. So now, probably by tomorrow, they were going to vote on his confirmation in the Senate. He has the votes. Now, if Hegseth is confirmed, he's going to do exactly what you're saying. Clean out these generals, these woke, left-wing, partisan Democrat generals. Clean out the senior military leadership and end this transgenderism and DEI and all this woke garbage in the military. And so the military-industrial complex and the Pentagon are now fighting for their very lives. They want to knock Hegseth off at all costs. So they get a former sister-in-law, Danielle Hegseth. Well, now her name is Danielle Dietrich, but she used to be Danielle Hegseth, who was married to Pete Hegseth's brother. Okay, they got divorced. Nasty divorce. She's a diehard anti-never Trumper. And she comes out, listen to this, last moment, at 11th hour, an affidavit saying Pete Hegseth engaged in spousal abuse with his second wife, Samantha. Okay, he's a wife beater. And the media is running wild with it. Including, by the way, Fox News, just so that you know. The problem is, his own second wife, Samantha, came out and said, it's a lie. There was never physical abuse of any kind. Not only did she say it now, not only did she say it in the past, she literally said it in court documents when they finalized their divorce. She said, I want you to know it was infidelity. That was the big thing, okay? She goes, he never touched me. He never abused me. No, the guy just cheated on me, which is not nice. Don't get me wrong. But that doesn't make you a wife beater. Doesn't mean you now hit your wife. So the alleged victim is saying it never happened. It doesn't matter. Now, in other words, they're looking for a pretext to vote against Hegseth. As I said on X last night, more smears, more lies. Because they know that Hegseth is going to implement Trump's mission to make the army, to make the military a lethal fighting force again, and to get rid of all this woke, DEI, transgender garbage. And so now they're out to bury and destroy Hegseth at all costs. And again, it's just more lies and lies and lies. And look, when the victim is telling you she's lying, the sister-in-law is lying, it never happened, and you're still running with the story? As Larry said, that's why the legacy media is finished. You can't stop lying. Dave, thank you for that call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, just very quick. This was Trump's press conference yesterday. And by the way, I'm not kidding. Already, reporters have now said Trump has answered more questions from the media in the last 2 days. I want you to think about this. Than Joe Biden did his entire 4 years in office. Trump has now answered in 48 hours more questions from the media than Joe Biden answered in his entire 4-year presidency. It's just, you can't make this up. Listen now to Trump saying, you guys are getting all hot and bothered over me pardoning these innocent people who were clearly the victim of a political witch hunt by an out-of-control DOJ, but you say nothing about Biden's pardons? Now, remember, to tie it back to January 6th, the prosecutors, those that lied, those that framed the J6ers, those that destroyed evidence, those that buried exculpatory and exonerating evidence, they were pardoned even before the J6ers, the victims themselves, were pardoned. Remember, Benny Thompson, the chair of the committee, preemptively pardoned by Biden. Liz Cheney, pardoned. Schiff, pardoned. Raskin, pardoned. Everybody on that unselect committee was pardoned by Joey before he left office. Roll cut 1B, Mike.
Why did he give a pardon to all of these people that committed crimes? Why did he give a pardon to the J6 Unselect Committee when they burned and destroyed all documents which showed that they did what was wrong, not me? Wait a minute. Why did they give a pardon to all of his relatives, his brother who made millions of dollars, to all these different people? He gave pardons. That's the question you should be answering. All right, go ahead. Yeah, please.
If I can just follow up really fast. Steve, can I just follow up with that really fast?
No.
I just want to ask. Go ahead. You said you will.
In other words, they want to go back again, J6, January 6th. And he's like, look, I'm done. Stop. I've given you my statement. Now get lost. So they keep going. And again, they attack police officers. So then Trump says, really? So suddenly now you care about murderers? You care about people who attack police? You care about innocent victims? That's now your big shtick in the media? Listen how he brilliantly turns the tables regarding illegal immigration. He ties the whole thing together. Roll cut 1C, Mike.
In the history of our country, there's never been anything take place like this. They're still looking for them, but they're not looking for the murderers, the people that are killing everybody. We are, though, and we're getting them out of the country. We just started that. We're getting them out of the country, and they're going to be gotten out of the country fast. They came in illegally from jails and from prisons. They killed many people. Some of them killed many people. About 50% of them killed more than one person. They were released into our country. That's what we're focused on, not the kind of nonsense you're talking about.
Now, just to clarify, when he says, at the beginning, there's been nothing like it, he means the persecution of the J6ers, right at the beginning of that clip. So he's like, I've never seen anything like this persecution of these people, most of whom did nothing wrong. And he goes, by the way, and it's true, the DOJ was still looking to charge hundreds more. He goes, they're obsessed with, we're talking now 4 years after the fact. And they're still trying to hunt the old ladies down. Really, old ladies outside on the Capitol steps. They're still trying to hunt them down. He goes, I'm not focused on this nonsense. I'm going after, you guys you guys claim you care about crime? How about the murderers that Joe Biden let in? The rapists, the drug traffickers, the gangbangers, the cartels? No? MS-13? No? Tren de Aragua? No? You guys don't care about that? I gotta say, and he just keeps letting him ask questions. He's signing executive order. It's incredible. He's signing these executive orders in front of their face. It goes on for hours. He's just signing stuff. Sign. And these idiots are asking question after question after question, and he's like just deflecting them. He's refuting them, rebutting them, turning the tables on them. And within 2 days, he's answered more questions from the media than Dementia Joe has for 4 years. Heidi in Northborough. Thanks for holding, Heidi, and welcome.
You took a lot of my thunder. Yesterday I watched the whole press conference, and I have to say he was amazing. He did unbelievable. I think that I love the way that he shut that reporter down by just putting his hand up like, you're done. I'm not listening to you anymore. The reporter kept trying to say something, and then they scanned back to the reporter after all that happened, and you should have seen the look on his face. And it was like he was going to leave the press conference because that's all he was there to do, was try to attack him about the J6ers. A couple of things about, first of all, the reporters missed the whole point of the press conference. The press conference was to announce Stargate, which if they had concentrated on that, they would realize how amazing that this is going to be for the United States to create jobs and bring things back into the United States for AI, which is going to only help us, like everything that Trump is trying to do. But again, they're trying to just continue to make him look bad. They tried to say that the first thing that this reporter said was, do you support the men and women in blue? Because if you do, then you would have not done this because they attacked the men and women in blue. And Trump then defended himself and did a great job of it. But then I saw on the media later on that they were playing Vance's statement and saying that, they tried to say, well, why are you and your vice president disagreeing on this? So they're already trying to create a rift between the two of them where there is none. Trump also announced that he's pardoning the 2 police officers that were arrested for what they did with the illegal immigrant. I don't know if they ended up killing him or just arresting him or what they did, but Trump defended himself in that way too, to say, if I don't defend the men and women in blue, then why would I do that? And then my last point is, I hope and I pray that Trump investigates the Biden crime family, because if they don't answer the questions, then they can be charged with contempt of court. And if they lie under oath and don't answer the questions truthfully, then they can be charged with perjury. So there are still ways that he can make the truth come out, and he can make them look how ridiculous they are and how crooked they really are.
Brilliant.
That's all.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And look, Heidi, just to put a cherry on your Sunday, because your call is phenomenal. Look, nobody backs the blue more than Jeff Kuhner, okay? I mean, everybody knows that. But, and you never attack a police officer, and you never pepper spray a police officer. But 7 years for pepper spraying a police officer? I'm sorry. I'm telling you, I don't think any cop would call into the show and say, hey, Jeff, guy resists arrest, or I'm scuffling with a guy and he, sprays me with pepper spray. Yeah, it stings your eyes. It may even make you unconscious a little bit. I don't want the guy in jail for 7 years. A year, 18 months, 6 months, whatever. Okay, yeah, you should send a signal. You don't mess with the police. But 5, 7, 8, 9 years? It's excessive. It's insane. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. Okay, my friends, since we're talking about pardons, as you know, Biden, on his way out the door, gave preemptive pardons. Blanket, unconditional, sweeping, preemptive pardons. That's not, what Trump just did with the J6ers. Specific charges, specific convictions, specific allegations. This was, for example, for his crime family, anything they may have done, everything, anything, going all the way back to January 1st, 2014. That's the pardon he gave to Hunter last month. This is the pardon he gave at the last minute. As Trump said, I'm giving my speech, and that's when I find that that's when it comes across, it comes over the wires, that Biden is now pardoned, Frankie and Jimmy and Valerie, his brothers, his sister, their spouses. Those were all going back over 10 years to January 1st for everything and anything. Same thing with the J6 committee, with Anthony Fauci, which means, by the way, all of the savage, inhumane experiments that he conducted on children, black children, when he was searching for an AIDS cure in the 1980s, now pardoned. Many children were literally killed in those experiments, that Fauci oversaw and conducted. So it's blanking, sweeping for Fauci, Milley, Liz Cheney, Benny Thompson, his whole crime family. So let me ask you, because the Supreme Court in 1915, I believe, ruled that if you accept a pardon, and by the way, you don't have to accept a pardon is voluntary. As you know, Sandy and I were talking about this off air. If I would not accept a pardon, if I wasn't charged with anything and I did nothing wrong and I'm an innocent man, I'm like, well, why would I accept a pardon? I don't want a pardon. Why would I get one? No, because according to the Supreme Court, it's an admission of guilt. Whether you like it or not, if you accept the pardon, it is an admission and an acknowledgement of guilt. Now think about that. So my question to you, we're talking now about Fauci, Milley, the whole Biden crime family, the J6 committee. They're all accepting these pardons, every single one of them. So the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Is the acceptance of a preemptive pardon an admission of guilt? A, yes. B, no. You know where I stand. I am a yes all the way. To me, I think it's self-evident, but that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, KUHN is in national ER. You can also vote via X. Last night I was very active on X. You can follow me there and vote as well. My handle at the Kuhner Report, all one word, KUHN is in national ER. Before I go to the phone lines, I want to just give you an example of how incredibly unjust, but not just unjust. It was a reign of terror that was unleashed by Biden and the Department of Justice, and it was a political reign of terror. One of the people who got a pardon from Trump, one of the J6ers, is an individual many of you know. I'm sure you've heard of his name, Brandon Straka, Straka. Brandon Straka was a gay activist, was also a Democrat. And yet, like many Democrats, and frankly, like many gay people, he has woken up to the fact that the Democratic Party doesn't give a damn about them and doesn't give a damn about the country. And so he started something called the Walk Away movement, whereby Democrats, former liberals, leftists, leave the Democratic Party and have become Trump supporters. Brandon Straka was there on January 6th. He was on the east wing of the Capitol. He was there for 8 minutes. He never touched a police officer. He never attacked a police officer. He never hurt anybody. He never entered the Capitol. He literally was there with his video camera to film what happened. That's all he did. He filmed what was happening for 8 minutes. And for that crime of filming what took place, Merrick Garland's Justice Department wanted to throw him in jail for 30 years, saying that he was aiding and abetting, quote unquote, terrorism, and that he was an insurrectionist. And so to avoid going to jail for 30 years, again, nonviolence, didn't even enter the Capitol, did nothing. He was just with his camera. He then pled guilty, like many J6ers, to avoid massive jail time. He pled guilty to a misdemeanor and was sentenced to 3 years in jail. Yesterday, he came out and said, thank God for Donald Trump. This was a witch hunt, a reign of terror that has now finally come to an end. 7:39 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. Okay, the media now, Democrats, many rhinos, on the warpath against Trump for issuing sweeping pardons for practically every J6er. Over 1,500 have been pardoned. God bless them. 12 to 14 have been given commutations. And the media says this is an outrage, a stain on Trump's presidency. And according now to many Democrats, he's now going to foment even more violence by using these free J6ers as his own private army and foot soldiers. I swear to you, this is now what they're peddling. Agree, disagree. Dan in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Dan, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank God for President Trump for restoring constitutional republic. And, Jeff, nobody's done more in 2 months and call it whatever you want, 14, 15 days before even taking office. It's unbelievable what he got accomplished. You're absolutely right about the pardons, Jeff, okay? Under George Bush, you had 200 pardons. Obama had 1,927. President Trump, in his first term, had 237. Corrupt Joe Biden, 8,064. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, unbelievable.
That's incredible. That's incredible. That's just incredible. Dan, I'm just curious, Dan, because you're like me, you're a law and order, constitutionalist, you're a law and order conservative. What do you say to the argument? And this is now coming more from Republicans, establishment, globalist Republicans. As I said, their mouthpiece is the Wall Street Journal. Frankly, many on Fox are making this argument too, that these J6, this is Rupert Murdoch's people, that these J6 pardons undermines the Republican brand and even Trump's brand to some extent of backing the blue, supporting police, supporting law enforcement, upholding law and order, that some of the people that he pardoned were convicted of assaulting or pepper spraying police officers. The one they keep going on about is this guy, DJ Rodriguez, who apparently had a stun gun and he put it into the back of a police officer. So they're saying, how can you back the blue, but then issue a pardon for somebody like DJ Rodriguez? What say you, Dan?
Say that President Trump did his homework. I think he looked into each one of these cases, case by case, before he did the pardon. And it's as simple as that. President Trump never goes into a negotiation without having all his ducks in a row. It's as simple as that. I mean, he's proven it time and time again, right? And if you look at these, let's talk about some of the people they pardoned, okay? Not for nothing, but Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney were put in by Nancy Pelosi into the January 6th committee going after President Trump for the sham impeachment trial, right? And it should have been McCarthy. Where was Kevin McCarthy? Okay, he's a 55F voter. He was working with the Democrats. Okay, he was non-existent, didn't say a word. Okay, and then when you look at this, okay, when you're talking about Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Jamie Raskin, Liz Cheney, they're all tied to the Ukraine money laundering scheme. Okay, Nancy Pelosi has over $290 million. Okay, and let's hope Susan Collins votes with the Republicans. She's worth $45 million. Her constituents should be calling her out and finding out where she's getting all this money. Okay, the other thing is you got these dirty rats, Obama. Okay, worth nearly $1 billion and has mansions in Hawaii, Chicago, Martha's Vineyard, and the Washington, D.C. sewer. And then you got on top of it, you got the Clintons swimming in over $363 million. And we're not even talking about the shell companies where the money's being funneled through.
Well, Dan, look, you hit the nail right on the head. And that's why I thought there was one part of, the whole thing was brilliant, but there was one part of his inaugural address that, I was just licking my chops. I was pumping my fists right in front of their faces, as you mentioned them, Obama, the Clintons, the Bushes, Joe Biden, Jill Biden, Kamala, all of them, with all these senators as well in the room. And he's like, you elites have enriched yourselves and gotten filthy wealthy off the backs of the American people. And I'm here to tell you, it's over. It's over. The days of the swamp are over. Dan, thank you very much for that call. And I'm telling you, that's part of the reason why he pardoned all these J6ers. Because they went after the J6ers. It was a political witch hunt to distract Americans from what really happened on that day, but more importantly, how they have been raping the country. The politicians have been, the political class have been raping our country, these globalists, for decades. Look, when you start talking 300 million, 400 million, $1 billion, you're talking Russia. You're talking China in terms of corruption and kleptocracy. You know, these are oligarchs. These are modern day, and they're political oligarchs, meaning that they act on behalf of even wealthier and more powerful oligarchs. And Trump's the bad guy because a guy like Brandon Straka is sentenced, to avoid a 30-year prison sentence because he showed up with a video camera. And they make him plead to a misdemeanor, 3 years in jail. And Trump says this is outrageous. 3 years for doing nothing except taping and videotaping. And you're going to put a guy in jail for 36 months? And you're going to tell me this is not a modern day gulag? And the media has the gall to criticize Trump? By the way, that press conference yesterday, he was on fire. Absolute fire. The only thing I would have added was a blank you. That's it, but that's me. He says, get out of here. Get out of here. I would have blank you. F off. Roman in Boston. Thanks for holding, Roman, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Good. How are you, Roman?
I'm well. Jeff, I've been a police officer for 29 years. I've pretty much seen it all. The hypocrisy of the left is staggering. They use police as villains or as heroes to suit their needs. It's absolutely ridiculous. They talk about, the police that no cops died on January 6th. Okay. And the police that died, they died in this and that. They don't mention the Antifa and FBI agitators that got the crowd stirred, and the rubber bullets and the gas that got pumped into the crowd to just to agitate a little bit, a little cattle prod into the grandmothers and the grandfathers that was standing there outside waiting. Cory Booker and Ratkin. Our police. Where were they when there was a basically worldwide effort against police after George Floyd, when we were demonized? We were driven into the shadows. We couldn't even use harsh language because we were worried about getting our pensions taken away. And then the Summer of Love. Let's not forget about that. That was great. Cops getting actually killed. And they don't mention when the illegal aliens beat up the New York cops, and then gave the double bird flip on the way out of the court and just took a bus to California. They don't mention that as well. Heidi was on point. When you take a pardon, it's an admission of guilt. Your Fifth Amendment rights are waived. They could be brought up in front of Congress. Maybe nothing would happen to them, but they will be exposed. And as you say all the time, sunlight is the best disinfectant. We already know what they did.
Roman, can I ask? You're on fire, by the way. You're clicking on all cylinders. Roman, I got to ask you, as a 29-year police veteran, and if you disagree with me, please go ahead. And I love you guys. You know how much I love the blue. Never attack a police officer. Never assault a police officer. You never use a stun gun. You never pepper spray a police officer, ever. But I got to ask you, as a cop, 29-year veteran, you're arresting somebody or you're scuffling with a protester or whatever, and somebody pepper sprays you. Do you think that person deserves 5, 7, 8, 9, 10 years in jail? I mean, you should never do it. Don't get me wrong. But as Trump said, my God, we don't even give murderers that kind of a sentence. Agree, disagree, Roman?
Jeff, I can tell you a little story. Like I said, I've pretty much seen it all and done it all. I've had people try to take my gun away from me, Jeff. And they didn't get it, but they tried, okay? And, court case, the arrest was made, court case went on, and it was it kept getting continued and continued and continued and continued. After a while, I forgot about it, because other things in life happen, other things in my job happen. As far as the pepper spray and stun gun, we could quibble about that. You know what I mean? I think, in Massachusetts, they would have a parade for those guys, to be honest with you. Yeah, but, we could quibble about that, and that is an individual basis. That wasn't them as a whole. Like you said, they're still going after J6. A month ago, they arrested someone because they captured his ear, and they identified him by his or her ear on a video camera, and they were still persecuted.
Incredible. Roman, thank you for your service. I love you guys in blue, guys and gals, men and women in blue. Love you guys. Love all of you. Okay. Roman says in Massachusetts, they'd give you a parade. More with your calls next. 7:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. It seems to me one of the reasons why you're seeing this absolute freak out, this meltdown by the entire fake news media, by the entire Democratic Party, and honestly by many of these globalist rhino Republicans. It's not just that Trump is clearly now in command, showing complete mastery, hitting the ground running, and by the way, fulfilling every single promise, campaign pledge he has made, okay, including obviously the sweeping pardons of the J6ers. But by giving these pardons, he's not just undoing a gross injustice. What he's also doing is he's wiping away the narrative, the false narrative of January 6th. And they know that. And that's what's really driving them bananas. It wasn't an attack on our democracy. It wasn't an insurrection. It wasn't the worst event to hit the United States since the Civil War. If you believe that, you're truly insane. You're nuts. Really, you're nuts. So they tried to so amplify and exaggerate what happened on January 6th. Remember, they're saying it's worse than the Holocaust, worse than Pearl Harbor, worse than 9/11. Worse, I could go on and on. Worse than the Vietnam War. Worse than World War I. You're nuts. You're crazy. And it was all done to try to frame Trump as an insurrectionist, as a terrorist, as politically toxic, as, persona non grata, in order to prevent him from winning in 2024. And if they couldn't do that, it was then used to try to smear and defame us and brand us, the whole MAGA movement, as an insurrectionist terrorist movement. That's why they went all in on January 6th. That's why Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney and Raskin and Adam Piece of Schiff, all of them, that's why they destroyed evidence, which is undeniable. That's why they destroyed or buried, exculpatory, exonerating evidence. For example, Trump did ask for 10,000 National Guard troops 3 days before January 6th. Trump never coordinated with any of the so-called J6ers. There was not a single text, a single email that shows that he knew anything about any of this in advance. In fact, the polar opposite. He did everything in his power to try to prevent anything from breaking out. All there is in the evidence. All of it. And Pelosi, who admitted that she bore responsibility for what happened on that day, All of this they tried to destroy and bury. And that's why Joey had to give them an unconditional preemptive pardon. Because they don't want the truth of January 6th to come out. And let's not forget Ray Epps and the role of the FBI and the role of the CIA. And remember, they said the FBI had no involvement. Now we find out that was a lie. And the J6 committee destroyed evidence that showed that. So that's why Biden had to give them all a preemptive pardon. 617-266-6868. Jeff in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Thanks for taking my call, Jeff. How are you today?
Very good. How are you, Jeff?
I'm doing okay. I'm better than some of my coworkers. At least I'm inside the shop. One of my guys sent me a picture of a thermometer on his truck. It was minus 16.
Holy.
Yeah.
Holy shamoy.
Anyway.
No,
the reason I called.
I was at -1 this morning. Mike, he lives in southern New Hampshire. Mike, what were you? -6, you told me? -6, -4. Mike was at -4, so I guess the more north you go in New Hampshire, -16, Jeff, that's frigid, man. That's Arctic. I feel it's cold. That's why, by the way, I just got off the phone with my daughter. She's on her way to school taking the bus. And I said, sweetheart, please, I'm begging you. Hat, scarf, gloves, boots, warm jacket. You're going to get frostbite. Okay? Please listen to Daddy. I think she's listening to Daddy, Jeff. But anyway, I digress. You're right. It's freezing. Jeff, where's Al Gore when you need him? Huh? I could use some of that global warming right now, Jeff. Go ahead, my friend.
Yachts. The one thing that I feel like everybody keeps forgetting about this whole January 6th debacle was the number one fact you have to remember. It was an entrapment scheme. If any of these people had gone to court with legitimate lawyers and legitimate judges and had their exculpatory evidence that they were allowed to have by constitutional rights, they would have been dismissed as an entrapment charge, no matter what they did, even if they punched a cop square in the face, which I do not agree with, but it was definitely an entrapment. They herded him into a small space. Like you spoke of earlier, they started unleashing the rubber bullets. They also were firing tear gas into the crowd and herding them towards the Capitol building. Then they opened up the doors from the inside, let everybody in, and then it was a big deal. It's the definition of entrapment.
Oh, you're 1,000% correct, Jeff. 1,000%. And just to add to what you're saying, but you are spot on. There were thousands and thousands of hours of videotape, okay, from these security cameras. And remember, that's why Tucker Carlson lost his job. He just saw, 4 minutes? Like 4 or 5 minutes. But the committee destroyed all the this videotape. Well, what did it show? Because remember, the story they're telling the public is this was a rampaging mob, Jeff. That's what they're trying to sell. These were foaming at the mouth, fascist, white supremacist, right-wing terrorists who were looking to hang people and destroy everything in their sight. See, that's, the brown shirts, that these were Hitler's brown shirts. And that they were beating police officers inside, and my God, they were going to hang them if they could. Instead, it's thousands of hours of footage of one protester after another getting a guided tour from the police. They're walking up and down the hall. You got to see. They're laughing. They're taking selfies. Oh, look at this picture of George Washington. It's beautiful. Picture. Come on, guys. Hey, go ahead. Click. Oh, I love this. Shaking the police officer's hands. The police, he got pardoned as well. You know, the guy with the shaman. Okay. Jake, I think Chansley is his last name. If I'm mangling it, I apologize. He's being guided by the police. They're giving him a tour. And then he goes onto the Senate floor and he's like, wow. And then he sits on that chair and he says, let's pray for the police. That's what he says. Let's pray for the police. Let's pray for our country. So what you see on tape is the exact opposite of what prosecutors, the Justice Department, the media, the judges, all of the phony, the lying narrative that they presented. So what did they do? The tape was never shown. The tape was destroyed and never handed over to defense attorneys. And that's why one defense attorney after another said, had we had that tape that exonerates my client? Because it shows that everything the prosecution is saying is a lie. Now, Jeff, look, you live in the real world. I live in the real world. Prosecutors abuse their power. Yes, it happens. There's prosecutorial misconduct. No question. But you do it for one, maybe two. But for 1,500? No. That was deliberate. That was premeditated. That was planned from the very top. They wanted to destroy Trump by destroying his supporters. Final word to you, Jeff.
Also why the FBI went around and confiscated all footage from people's personal cell phones or recording devices. They wanted all of it in their hands so they could selectively release what they wanted to show to tell their story, which was a story, not the story.
Bingo. Jeff, stay warm, and thank you for that call, my friend. Alan, in the great state of South Carolina. And Alan, from what I'm seeing on weather reports, I can't believe it, but apparently even you guys are getting apparently hit with freezing temperatures. Am I wrong?
We've got about an inch and a half out there. Not that bad.
An inch and a half of snow, really?
Yeah.
Wow. What is this? The first time I mean, that's got to be really rare for your parts, right?
It happens every couple of years. I mean, we had maybe 3 or 4 inches a couple of years ago, and my boys were out there playing until about 1 o'clock in the morning because you knew it was going to melt the next day.
Okay, so I didn't hear about the snow. Wow. All right, Alan, buddy, what's on your mind?
Hey, I just wanted to say, first of all, Happy New Year. I haven't talked to you yet. And secondly, I hope you got my messages through Messenger, condolences to your father.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Alan. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
My thoughts are this. One, you've been talking about the whole Antifa thing this morning and the pardons and all that. Did you happen to see that they're at it again out in Portland right now? Actually, Monday evening, about 15 Antifa guys attacked a detention center, an ICE detention center, in retaliation for Trump's mass deportation efforts.
Alan, I've heard something about it, but can you send me a story? Do you have anything in print that I can look at?
I did. I sent you Jack Poso's post about it this morning on Messenger. So you
all right, Alan, I'm going to look at that. I'm going to definitely look at that. Well, look, Alan, I think they're making a big mistake because this is not 2020. This is 2025. And Tom Homan is like an old style, sheriff from the Old West. He's not going to tolerate this, and Trump is not going to tolerate this. So they may have gotten a free pass before. They're not going to get a free pass now. And so, to me, I throw every one of these Antifa terrorists into behind bars. So if they want to start with this sabotaging Trump's raids and deportations, let them try, because Homan's going to arrest every single one of them.
I would do one more than that. Anybody who throws their lot in with these illegals, whether it be the Antifa folks, Prisker, any of these politicians, deport them all with the illegals. Just out. Goodbye.
I'm with you, Alan. I'm with you. And look, I'm going to talk about this probably tomorrow, although the Hegseth thing is really heating up. So we may have to go with Hegseth tomorrow. We'll see. But I definitely want to talk about birthright citizenship because Trump passed that executive order ending birthright citizenship. Apparently now 22 Democrat attorneys general and the ACLU are taking him to court right away. And I think Trump needs to win. I think he needs to prevail on this. and take it all the way to the Supreme Court. Because I think the 14th Amendment has been deliberately misinterpreted now for a very long time. And it's a huge issue. If they can't have anchor babies and you can't have birth tourism, that really undercuts illegal immigration. And so, Alan, I'm just curious. Are you happy with Trump's first 48 hours? I know you've been a huge Trump supporter. You've been very tough and I think really good on the immigration issue. Is Trump delivering so far? Are you happy?
Absolutely. I would say there's one thing that we might be able to do, because I haven't seen a couple of names in the Biden pardons. I know he did Fauci. I know he did Milley. I know he did Frankie and Jimmy and Valerie and all that. I say we get our pound of flesh out of Mayorkas and Garland, squeeze them, pop them like a pimple, and get them to sing on Biden and he ordered all this stuff. And then, unless he's protected by executive privilege, go after him.
I love it. I love it. Alan, I love it. I agree with you completely. I love it. In other words, look, they think they've Trump-proofed themselves. No, there's a lot of holes there. Mayorkas, Garland, frankly, I'm telling you, go after Biden. I would go after Biden. And I would. I think the audience, Heidi said it, but to repeat it, doesn't matter. Even if Hunter has a pardon, or Frankie or Jimmy or whoever. No. Then you subpoena them. They have no ability now, no right to hide behind the Fifth Amendment, and you expose them. If they don't come, it's contempt of Congress, obstruction of justice, throw the book at them. If they do go under oath and they lie, you hit them with perjury. If they go and tell the truth, the Bidens have been thoroughly, utterly unmasked and exposed. So to me, why stop? There's no reason to stop. In fact, he was so brazen in his pardon, which is an admission of guilt. I think now he's given Republicans all the blood that they need if they want to go after him. He left office with a neon sign saying, "Me and my crime family, guilty, guilty, guilty," by doing those pardons for his family. So I'm like, hey, if he made it that easy for you, go get him. Alan, thank you very much for that call. Rob, in the belly of the beast, Washington, D.C. Thanks for holding, Rob, and welcome.
Jeff. Reporting from the D.C. jail yesterday.
Now, Rob, has everybody been released? I hear that the mayor, Muriel Bowser, that hack, she's trying to block or prevent or slow walk some of the J6ers from being released. What are you seeing on the ground, Rob?
Well, that is accurate, Jeff, because she was complicit, and as I went after the the CBS affiliate, the local, and the Channel 4, which is NBC, the two reporters on the ground, I said, Mr. and Mrs. Reporter, when are you folks going to talk about the beginning of the story with Nancy Pelosi, Muriel Bowser, and General Milley? If these people weren't complicit, you wouldn't be standing here. No answer.
I was going to say, what was the answer, Rob? Nothing, huh?
They ducked. They were screaming. I said to the CBS reporter, would you please tell George Stephanopoulos about Officer Sitnik? He didn't get hit by a fire extinguisher. He passed away some other way. We tell him to stop lying. So anyways, yeah, about 150 people there, all European press. We had a couple new media people there streaming live, which was pretty good. Characters. We had Ashley Babbitt's mother was there. A guy from Philadelphia that got let out last night. It came down to D.C. And one other lady that I really didn't get to chat with or see or talk to. But I stood with a lady for about 2 hours that was waiting for her boyfriend, Jeremy Brown, to be released. And he was a guy with the Oath Keepers. And what happened to him was they tried to set him up as an informant down in Tampa. So she was outside, and I was actually standing there holding my own on the sidewalk with the D.C. police. And they kept on saying, yo, you got to leave. I said, no, sir, this is a public sidewalk. I'm not going in. Unless you can cite me a lawful order, I will kindly, decline to move my body. And I never moved the whole time. So the girl came over, and I was just with her, chatting, found her story out. And what happened to him was he was going to get released. That's why she was there. She just drove up from Tampa. And what happened was, as a lot of people don't understand, this is run by the Marshal Service, okay? And there's a whole process of verifying signatures and orders, and the guy that was supposed to be doing that obviously was on vacation or went away. But the guy from Tampa that I was familiar with, Jeremy Brown, that they stopped him because of some strings attached down in Tampa. I was there about 6 hours, about 6 hours just standing around.
Rob, have you seen any of the J6ers personally released from prison?
Like Kane was there, Arizona too. He was there. He was the only. I actually interviewed the guy. Just asked him about. I said to him, Representative, as a regular citizen, I asked him the question regarding these pardons. I said, can we still go after the people that were pardoned, like Milley and Pelosi wasn't at the time? But he said that they're working on it, and obviously, no matter what happens, that the optics were. To make it as difficult, drag the feet as possible, and make Trump look bad at all times.
Oh, I know.
And the last thing I'll say to you, Jeff, is this: 4 years ago, standing up on the west side in front of the bicycle lanes, there was this police officer in front of me. I was right there because I was shooting video, named Jakob, and he was a real nasty bastard. I won't say the word. He was really nasty. So lo and behold, staring me right in the face 4 years later is this guy. I say, you were that guy who would spray everybody and then pickpocket them when they were trying to defend themselves. He goes, well, that's you. That's you, isn't it? I said, that name is not common, is it? He goes, no. He said, what nationality? It's Turkish. I said, how many of those names are in the D.C. police? I'm the only one. That's you. And he finally had to admit it. 4 years, 16 days later. I never thought I'd ever see this guy again. He had a mask on. Huh? It was unbelievable.
Of course he had a mask on. Sure, he's a moonbat. Even outside in the freezing cold, he thinks he's going to get COVID. It's just unbelievable. Rob, God bless you and all the J6ers, and tell them a big congratulations, a big hello from me to everybody. They're coming out, and they deserve to come home and be with their family. Rob, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Look, the images now that we're seeing over the last 24 hours, very emotional. You know, you see these poor J6, they're hostages, as Trump called them. They're political prisoners. And many of them have been held for years in absolutely cruel, dirty, filthy, inhumane conditions. And they're coming out, and they're being greeted by their spouses, husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, brothers, sisters, parents, you name it. And the scenes, it brings a tear to your eye. It really does. The emotion that you can see. Anyway, Trump made a promise, and God bless him, he delivered on his promise. 617-266-6868. Okay, coming up next, do I have a story for you? Oh, you got to hear it. 8:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, cleaning up the liberal bull. If you read the novel 1984, Orwell warns that one of the signs of a totalitarian society, and he looked at Nazi Germany, he looked at Stalin's Russia, he looked at other totalitarian societies. He said what begins to happen is that the government, the police, they start to turn children against their parents. That this is how evil these totalitarian regimes are. That they want to pit very flesh and blood, sons and daughters against their mothers and fathers. Well, you want to see how evil so many of these J6 prosecutions were. It literally pitted children against their parents. And in particular, There is a case regarding Bo Reffitt. Reffitt. You can look it up yourself. Please don't take my word for it. Bo Reffitt, strong Trump supporter, was convinced that the 2020 election had been stolen by Joe Biden. So did many of his friends. And Bo Reffitt decided that he was going to do something about it. And so he made the long journey to Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2021. And he attended the speech by Trump at the Ellipse. And then, like many others, he walked down to the Capitol. Now, the point I want to stress about Bo Reffitt, Bo never attacked, assaulted. He never laid a hair on anybody. He didn't touch a police officer. He didn't hurt anyone. He never entered the Capitol. So he was completely nonviolent, and he never, ever trespassed or breached the Capitol. He was just there in the crowd. But the Capitol Hill police got him on one of these security cameras. And so they tracked him down to his home in Texas. And what they noticed was on social media, this is now after the fact, Bo, and then they began to spy on his emails. And Bo was going on about, and he was saying inflammatory things about Joe Biden. Somebody needs to teach him a lesson. We need a revolution in this country. This can't stand. This is a stolen election. But my point is, this was all private. This was all him in his own home venting against Biden or on private chat rooms with his friends. He never picked up a gun. He never started to want to build bombs or plant bombs or do, literally, it was just a guy upset, venting, started to drink a lot, and apparently he was on medication as well. And so the booze and the medication together, you know, his wife said, you know, Bo was a little hot under the collar all the time after the election, would kind of have outbursts, would kind of, you know, explode or get angry in the house. But, you know, it was a bit unlike him, but to be that angry all the time and rant and rave and, you know, and, you know, be upset. But he wasn't violent, far from it. He was just very angry. Long story short, the FBI, listen now to this, reached out to his underage teenage son, Jackson Reffitt, who under the influence of his teachers and his peers became a flaming liberal and a rabid, diehard anti-Trumper. And they said, you want to do something for your country? You want to strike a blow against MAGA? You want to strike a blow against Trump? You want to be a hero among your peers, your friends, your teachers, people at school? And he's like, yeah. We need you to help us get your father. Because he was there at January 6th, and we want to get him. Will you wear a wire inside your own home and secretly, without his knowledge, tape your father at the dinner table, in the living room? And they said, if you can, try to provoke him. Ask him, was the election stolen, Dad? What do you think should happen to Biden, Dad? Do you think we need a revolution, Dad? And so Jackson Reffitt, unbelievably, like in the novel 1984, like what George Orwell warned, the FBI turned this son against his father. And he began to secretly record and secretly tape his father inside his father's home. And you could hear it on the tape. He's pumping his dad up. Dad, don't you think we need a revolution? Dad, you think this election was stolen? Dad, what do you think? Should somebody just shoot and kill Biden? What do you think, Dad? Huh? Now, again, this was in his privacy of his own home, which is protected under the First Amendment. People rant in their home. People say all kinds of things in their own home. It's a free country. You're allowed to say it. They used those tapes, the prosecution and the Merrick Garland, the Biden DOJ, to go after Bo Reffitt. And they ended up charging him as an insurrectionist who was plotting, listen to this, terrorism, simply for ranting and raving in his own home. He didn't buy a gun. He didn't buy a bullet. He didn't buy a bomb. He didn't buy anything to make a bomb. It was him talking to his son and shooting his mouth off. 7 years, 3 months in jail. 7 years, 3 months in jail, Bo Reffitt was sentenced. He's been spending over almost 3 years now behind bars. His own son ratted him out. His mother couldn't believe what he had done to her husband, to his father. He has 2 sisters. They said the level of betrayal, their hearts are broken that their son would do this to their father. They are waiting for Bo Reffitt. His wife, this boy's name is Jackson. He's a teen. Jackson's mom, Jackson's sisters are no longer speaking with Jackson. They say what he did was unforgivable. It has torn this family apart. And the 2 sisters and the wife, the mother, have thanked President Trump profusely. And they are waiting for Bo to come out of jail so they can take their father and their husband home. Jackson went on CNN with Aaron Burnett. Listen now to him saying, by pardoning his father, Jackson, listen to this, is the victim. And he's afraid for his life. Roll cut 18, Mike.
Well, I'm honestly flabbergasted that we've gotten to this point. I mean, I'm terrified. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've taken as many precautions as I could recently. I've picked up a gun. I've moved, and I've gotten myself away from what I thought would be a dangerous situation and staying where I thought my dad could find me. Or other people, people that are going to feel so validated by these actions, by this pardon, I'm just so filled with paranoia about what could happen. I've been waiting all day from a call from the DOJ to just figure it out and know what to do next, because right now I don't.
I mean, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. And Aaron Burnett and CNN are hailing this man, this boy. He's a boy. He's a teenager. They're hailing this teen as a hero of the resistance. Listen to Jackson Reffitt. There's more. Roll cut 18A, Mike.
My dad is still involved with these militias. He still talks with, a martyr status. He has no change. He's more galvanized than ever that I've seen. My mom too. My sisters are waiting outside the jail cell right now, and I feel for them, and I know who they are, and I love them, but I can't feel safe. And I'm sure hundreds of other families, thousands of other people that have been affected by these people and their actions, and what could happen when they're released. I mean, who knows? I mean, my dad once called me a traitor, and he said traitors get shot. So that's all I can think about recently. And
unbelievable. Hey, you are a traitor. I'm telling you, if your mother didn't tell you, I'm telling you, what you did to your father was absolutely, to me, unforgivable. You're a rat and you're a traitor. And this is what politics will do to a family. This is what ideology will do. This is what fanaticism will do. Now, I've got one more clip to play, and then I want to open it up to you next. 50 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay, so poor Bo Reffitt is rotting in jail. 7 years, 3 months was the sentence. Again, I want to stress this. Non-violent offender. Didn't do anything. Didn't even walk into the Capitol. Okay, he was just there outside as all this was going on. Never attacked a police officer, assaulted anyone, never did anything. His son, Jackson Reffitt, is secretly videotaping his father. His father's very upset. This is January, right after January 6, 2021. The election was stolen by Biden. He's illegitimate. And, and he's hot. He's hot. And Jackson is being prodded by the FBI. Get your father to say things. Push him. What should we do with Biden? Should we overthrow him, Dad? Should we kill him, Dad? And he's whipping his father up. So they secretly tape him, and then the prosecution says he's a wannabe terrorist, he's an insurrectionist, and they throw the book at him. So Jackson now is doing an interview on CNN. He's got the gun, got himself a gun. He's left his family, doesn't speak to his mother, doesn't speak to his sisters. He now says he's afraid of his old man now that he's been pardoned. Listen now to Jackson. At least there's some self-awareness where he says, well, what I did to my father was disgusting. Ratting him out, secretly taping him. And by the way, I need to add this. At the sentencing of his father, Jackson demanded that he get the maximum. 20 years in prison. 20 years. The judge gave him 7 years and 3 months. But he wanted 20 years in the slammer against his own father for essentially doing nothing. Except, blowing off steam and ranting in his own home, which he's allowed to do. I mean, you can say whatever you want in your own home. Listen now to Jackson. Roll cut 18B, Mike.
My father's actions coming from the Trump presidency and what he thought what he was doing was right, just destroyed it. And I made a very, very disgusting decision to inform authorities about what he was doing. And I still feel horrible about it every day. And, my sisters are out there right now and they're rooting for him. And, I understand that. I come with a point of love towards that. Like, I want to be there for them, but I can't. It just isn't safe.
This kid's unbelievable. This kid's unbelievable. No, you destroyed your family, not your father. And by the way, for the record, Bo Reffitt's wife says he's a wonderful husband, a wonderful, loving father. His 2 daughters, Jackson's 2 sisters, have said, our dad loves us to death. Great father, always has been. Very good provider, hard worker, God-fearing, patriotic man from Texas. And Bo Reffitt, in prison, has forgiven his son. He said, son, I forgive you. And you go on CNN and say, you're afraid of him? Because Trump pardoned him? That's what public education does to children today. Look at that level of brainwashing and indoctrination. Look at how the state, in this case the FBI, as Orwell warned in 1984, is literally pitting children against their parents and to rat them out for supposed crimes against the state. Now, Dave, our Western PA correspondent, messaged me on Messenger saying, Jeff, I'm sorry, but that kid, Jackson, needs a good, severe ass kicking. Now, let me tell you, okay? Now, you may disagree with me, but I'm just being honest with you. To do this to your own father, to betray your own flesh and blood and a good, decent man on top of all of that? The second the clock strikes midnight on his 18th birthday, out, and don't let the door hit you on the way out. If my son did this to me, I'm not saying I wouldn't forgive him. I would forgive him. I don't want to hate my son. But I'm telling you, I would never trust him again. And I tell him, son, you made your bed. You're now 18 years old. There's the door. There's the door. I want you out of my house. Agree, disagree. Kristen in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding. Oh, it's Kirsten. My bad. Kirsten in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Kirsten, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Kirsten.
So, as you know, I am one of the pardoned J6ers. Although I've yet to receive anything, probation is still waiting to hear from the U.S. attorneys. But on the day that he released the prisoners, we did have some issues all around this country, especially D.C. refusing to release them. I actually picked up 5 of them from Devens, Massachusetts. Never meeting these people, just being there to show them support, make sure we get them to a hotel, sharing all of our stories and hearing about RedFit it's absolutely disgusting what the school systems, what the FBI and everybody has done. I know in my case specifically, I had friends that I had arguments with that didn't agree with me politically, that was one of my FBI tipsters who, in a real country where it's not a 2-tier justice system, filing a false report is a crime. So none of these people were held accountable. I was never able to face them in my trial. But if you Google my name, you will see repeat stories of, I'm a proud boy. I bragged showing a video that I broke a window in the Capitol, none of which is true, but has ruined our entire reputations.
Why would your friend essentially snitch on you? Why would your friend betray you that way? You did nothing wrong. I understand that completely. But you're saying, she was an FBI tipster, like this son who betrayed his father. Why would your friend do that to you?
I don't know. I don't know what they really gained out of it. I hope that they live with that. And I hope it haunts them, because I actually had 4 tipsters, one of them being my own cousin, who is a hardcore leftist. And it's a shame that people would go that far against their own friends and family. And then that's before even talking about the 2-tier justice system and how none of us at all got a fair trial. Even our prosecutors. It makes you wonder why, in a time where we have such a human trafficking issue in America that is not a conspiracy, why we have prosecutors that were in the human trafficking department that was like, yes, I want January 6th. And they left that department to hunt down American citizens for misdemeanors is absolutely insane.
Did you ever confront your cousin or your friend and say, why did you do this to me? What did I ever do to you to deserve this?
I did confront my cousin. Actually, she was supposed to write a letter to the judge because, after talking to her and everybody, kind of explaining what you did. And, you don't have to agree, but you didn't have to go as far as contacting the FBI. She never ended up writing that letter. And actually, when I visit my aunt, she will not even come out of her room because she doesn't want to face me. Her political view has never changed. She still feels the same.
That is so sad. It's really tragic. Kirsten, so you've been now pardoned by Trump, I take it, correct? A full unconditional pardon?
Yes.
How do
but apparently probation hasn't been notified yet.
Unbelievable. But I mean, so now your record has been expunged. Are you happy with the pardon? Are you happy with the way Trump did it?
Yes and no. I think, even General Flynn was calling for a pardon of innocence, which is what General Flynn was given. Not knowing, I wish the Trump campaign or somebody would actually call and talk to us, because from my understanding, even though it's a full and unconditional pardon, that does not expunge our record. I've been told that's a whole nother process. We actually have to file motions with the court and have a judge grant it to be expunged. So although a pardon got people out of prison, off probation, things like that, it's still on our record. It's still, until the truth is fully out, all of us are still going to suffer. I mean, I haven't been able to find a job, living in a camper in my friend's backyard. I mean, life has taken a major turn in the last 4 years, and, we're still all suffering. And I just hope that there is more to come with these pardons, as far as proper investigations, compensation for wrongful imprisonment, defamation suits. I mean, it's been a wild ride.
Kirsten, I'm very sorry. I am truly, truly sorry. And I'm not going to let this issue go, I promise. You're right. You and all the J6ers deserve full financial compensation. Your record's completely expunged. You deserve to get your life back, or as much as you can get it back, because what was done to you was an incredible, grave injustice. The left always says a moral stain on our country. What they did to you was a moral stain on our country. Kirsten, God bless you, and please stay strong. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, my friends, joining me now, as she always does at this time, Dr. Grace, putting liberals in their place. Grace Vuoto, nationally syndicated columnist, political commentator. Grace, I got to ask you, I know I want to talk about the bishop and her outrageous behavior to President Trump at the National Prayer Service yesterday. But just very quickly, what do you make of Trump's decision to pardon the J6ers?
Jeff, it's a whole new day, and there is justice at last for so many innocent people. All they were doing was raising legitimate concerns about a fraudulent election, and they had their lives destroyed. And Trump is setting them free, as he rightly should. And I am so delighted at everything he has done. It's a whirlwind. I just cannot believe how quickly he is resolving so many problems, and he is keeping all of his promises. I completely support his decision to do so.
Oh, I'm with you all the way. Look, Grace, I got to ask you this. It's a huge story. Obviously, the J6 pardons, big story, but this is another one. So, as you know, it's a tradition in this country going all the way back, almost 100 years now, okay, to 1933. Every president, when they win, an election, there's a national prayer service that they attend with their family and the vice president's family. It's a beautiful tradition. You go to pray, God, country, for the administration, and, for the American people. Trump was at the national prayer service yesterday. And far left Washington Episcopal Bishop Marianne Edgar Budd delivered the homily. And she went right after Trump. She lectured him. She denigrated him. She viciously criticized and attacked him, saying, how dare you start cracking down on Biden's border invasion? How dare you start deporting illegals? How dare you say there are only two genders? You are frightening children. You're frightening illegals. You're frightening men, women. You need to stop. Roll cut 10, Mike.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples.
President Trump was stunned. J.D. Vance was stunned. The families were looking at her in utter disbelief. You're going to hector and lecture us? You're going to use the pulpit to push politics, radical left-wing politics, and give us the Democratic line one more time? Honestly, Grace, shouldn't Trump have walked out? That's what I said on X last night. Like, enough with these woke idiots. Seriously. They've never done this to any other president before, ever. It's always been nonpartisan. You pray for the country, for God, for the American people. Never has a president been subjected to this right from the pulpit. Should he have just gotten up and walked out? And if you were there, what would you have done? Go.
Jeff, I think what he should have done was simply, spoken about it right after that, not necessarily walked out, like just confronted her. That's what I think. But, the greater point that you're making is accurate. She has no business doing what she did. Look, what is she talking about? Gay, lesbian, transgender children are scared of what? What are they scared of? He's not going to do anything in that regard. So that's a preposterous comment. Just because he's affirming that there are two genders does not impact the lives of gay, lesbian, and transgender people. He's not calling for any violence against anybody. So that statement is absolutely ridiculous. And then to the point about the immigrants, one of the moments that I found so beautiful in the inaugural was when Christopher Macchio, the tenor, the Italian-American tenor, opened his mouth and he sang. Before he even belted a note, I said, oh, he's got to be an Italian. It's because of how much pride he displayed when he walked in. And it reminded me of all of the immigrants who came for decades legally with respect for this land, and they started to abide by the laws from the very first moment that they set foot, even before in applications or whatever was required. So what a difference between those immigrants who did everything right, and generations later you see how much pride they have in their heritage and in what their ancestors did coming to this country. And the contrast between lawlessness. So she has no business getting involved in that. Prayer is supposed to unify the country at that moment, not talk about a very controversial policy. She was completely out of line.
Well, and more than that, look, that was the argument of Kamala. That was the argument of Biden. That's the argument of the Democrats. You lost. Like, get over it. The American people voted on this issue. They back Trump's border policies. They back his mass deportations. They back his opposition to radical transgenderism in our schools, and paying for people's sex change operations in the military. And yes, they do want a definition that there are only two sexes, men and women. Now, if she can't deal with it, that's her problem. And furthermore, this is the same bishop who in 2020 literally supported Black Lives Matter and all the rioting that took place. One of her churches is St. John's, that was set ablaze by BLM in Washington, D.C., and she came out and did media interviews saying Trump is the problem, not Black Lives Matter, and that Trump needs to be replaced. So here you have this rabid left-wing anti-Trumper, and she's using the pulpit to go after Trump on the second day of his presidency? I mean, I'm sorry, but enough is enough. Am I wrong?
No, you're completely right. She's behaving like a giant sore loser. You're right. The election was waged on this. This is a controversial point in this country. It has been talked about to death. And the problem is this. There's an implicit demonization. If you disagree with her, well, somehow there's something wrong with you, rather than how we used to conduct affairs in this country. We can have a disagreement, but it doesn't mean that you're a bad person just because we disagree. But implicit in what she was doing was an attack on his character, on who he is as a human being. He's bad. And that's what's got to stop. It was completely disrespectful, and disrespectful of the people that voted for him to do what he's doing.
Pope Francis has attacked Trump, saying that his deportations, his border policies are a quote-unquote calamity. You now have this very woke Episcopalian bishop publicly at the pulpit, at the National Prayer Service, basically to his face, attacking him. Are we starting to see now the religious left, whether it's Catholics, evangelicals, Episcopalians, are they now starting to attack the president and abusing their authority and abusing their power? 30 seconds, go.
Yes, Jeff, and they have done that for years. And again, that's misplacing their role. They should be just calling for unity, for peace, for kindness, for the grand theological principles of Christianity or whatever religious domination they're going to espouse at that time. There's no place for politics in those moments. And yet they can't help themselves. Their ideology trumps every moment.
I agree. Their ideology trumps their faith. It trumps their role as either bishops or popes or whatever. And look, it's the woke mind virus. And I'm telling you that Episcopalian bishop is Exhibit A. Grace, as always, thank you. 921 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so let's throw another log on the fire, as I like to say. What do you make of this woke, far left, pro-LGBTQ+, pro-illegal immigrant, Bishop Marianne Budd lecturing Trump, actually really criticizing Trump, and J.D. Vance at the National Prayer Service yesterday, straight from the pulpit? Do you think it was appropriate for her to do that? And, Trump was gracious. I mean, he was stunned. He and the whole family were like, are you serious? Like, are you kidding? Like, we got to hear this. This is like a Kamala Harris speech. This is like Bernie being lectured by Elizabeth Warren. It's just you happen to wear the robe of a bishop. Like, I got to listen to this dreck now for 15, 20 minutes? Should she have abused her position in the way that she did? And should Trump have walked out? I'm just curious. What would you have done if you were in Trump's shoes? 617-266-6868. Okay, listen now to Trump. He was asked by a reporter what he thought of this bishop and the National Prayer Service. Let's put it this way. Trump was not impressed. Roll cut 10A, Mike.
What did you think of the service? What did you think? Did you like it? Find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I did think it was a good service. Thank you very much.
Did you find it exciting? I didn't. No, I didn't think it was a very good prayer service. No, it was horrible. It was atrocious. Again, I'm tired of this woke garbage. Are you? 617-266-6868. Okay, lines are loaded. Mike, who do you want me to go to next? Nick in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Nick, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. It's not why I called, but if there's a hell, that's where that bishop is going. There was no need for that. They should rotate these every 4 years as to what church. I recall the church of what's happening now on Saturday Night Live, for example. Maybe they should address the nation. Anyway, let's go to Fauci. Let's go to Francis Collins, director of the National Institute of Health. I don't know if he's been pardoned, but Fauci has, going back to 2014. Why? That's when Obama banned gain-of-function testing. Isn't that interesting, too? What did Obama know when he knew it? Anyway, in 2017, those two bums, and I'd like to know if Obama got rid of that executive order, whatever. I couldn't find that. How did they usurp his power and break it? And though Fauci may have been pardoned, there are state cases. So far, Trump, courtesy of the state of New York, the homely woman case, defamation, $120 million, almost $500 million in the real estate. That's what states can do. That's what countries can do. There were 6 to 7 million people destroyed by the initiation of that crap, the virus in the Wuhan lab, etc. Why can't they be pulled out of the United States by government of Italy, government of Scotland, wherever, where people died unnecessarily because of these two bums? They should be investigated. They should be asked the questions, like as you referred to earlier. I don't know about Francis, as I said. I don't know if he's been pardoned. But Fauci should be
No, he hasn't. But no, Nick, you nailed it. These were crimes against humanity. And, maybe Biden's pardoning Fauci saves him from federal prosecution. It doesn't save him from being prosecuted in another country. Now, what Fauci did, as you rightly pointed out, was he covered up the origins of the virus in the Wuhan lab. He helped fund the COVID-19 virus in the Wuhan lab. He broke our laws in funding gain-of-function research. And then he lied about the vaccine. He lied about the lockdowns. He lied about the mask mandates. He lied about the social distancing. And because of what he did, he, Collins, and others, they destroyed our society. There's no getting around it. Children are still affected from what happened. Businesses, hundreds of thousands of them, gone. People's lives destroyed. Our civil liberties violated. And countless people dead. And this guy is just going to ride off into the sunset? I don't think so. 9:31 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, it's all on the table. The J6 pardons, what do you make of them? And this really crazy left-wing Episcopalian bishop, Marianne Budd, whose homily just went right after Trump. His agenda, whether it be on transgenderism, on defining basically biological sex as man between one man and a woman. There's only two genders, as Trump put it, from now on in terms of the definition in the federal government. She says this is hurting people, that this is frightening children. It's frightening men, women, although you can't define them, but let that go. She says people are being offended by this. They're being frightened by this. The illegals are petrified. They're going to be deported. Just because they don't have proper documentation doesn't mean they don't deserve to be in our country. They pick our crops. They clean our offices. They cook our meals. Basically, as she puts it, they're indispensable. Now, notice, she doesn't cry for the victims of illegal immigrant crime. That she doesn't care about. Or the terrorists that have been let in. Or people like Laken Riley, who were murdered by an illegal alien. You see, that's not the purview of Jesus, according to Marianne Budd. Jesus does, if you're a victim, if you've been murdered or raped by an illegal alien, that Jesus doesn't mind that. That's okay with Jesus. No, because he's with the illegals. That's the sick, twisted logic of woke leftists like this Episcopalian bishop and frankly like the Pope in the Vatican. 266-6868 is the number. Let me play it one more time. Is it appropriate? Because this has never been done. It's 100 years or almost 100 years. Never, doesn't matter, Republican, Democrat. You have the National Prayer Service. They always go. Their families attend. It's a big thing to pray for the country. Never before has a priest or pastor or bishop, whatever the denomination, used the pulpit to impose and preach their politics and to humiliate and berate an incoming administration. Never before, except now with President Trump. Honestly, I felt very bad for him. It was incredibly disrespectful, and to me, it was a complete abuse of her power. This is just, this woman went on and on and on. I'm just giving you a taste. Roll cut 10, Mike.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals. They may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples.
Mosques, synagogues, wadara, temples. Just keep going. Don't stop. Just keep going. This is pathetic, really. And Mike was making a very good point in my ear, and as we're playing the cut again, he's like, Jeff, if you're an illegal alien, are you allowed to work in a hospital? No. Are you allowed to work in a poultry farm? No. Are you allowed to work in a meatpacking plant? No. Or even pay taxes. You're here illegally. This is the whole thing. It's ridiculous. So, Bishop Budd, they're stealing jobs from Americans. Don't you get that? You don't think Americans want to work in poultry farms? You don't think they don't want to work in meatpacking plants? You don't think they want to do the night shift at a hospital? A lot of nurses would be very happy to do the night shift at the hospital. Trust me, a lot of nurses are in contact with me. You know why they can't? Because they got fired. Because they wouldn't take the jab that Fauci was trying to force on everybody. So their careers were destroyed. There's a ton of Americans who would be more than happy to work at a hospital or clean office buildings or pick crops. Now, notice, without the proper documentation, I don't know, it's like me entering the building and I forgot my pass. It's like, it's just a little, this little document here, this little, hey, come on, what are we going to nitpick? No, they're here illegally. They broke our laws to get here. They're criminals. Comprende? And look, since she's being so obnoxious and frankly so insulting and so full of herself, if you're going to turn the National Prayer Service into a Democrat rally, at least comb your hair, brush your hair, for God's sake. Seriously, she looked like she just, everybody's commenting on this. Really, I don't want you, Jeff, you're being petty. No, look at her, everybody. She looked like she just rolled out of bed. At a minimum, brush your hair, for God's sake. Be presentable. 617-266-6868. Tom in Lakeville. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome. Hello, Tom? Tommy! Okay, I think we lost Tom. Margaret in New Jersey. Thanks for holding, Margaret, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. This is, situation very, touching, very same subject which you mentioned that they are vast, people who came to this country and are there are some illegals and there are illegals. I am dealing with legal immigration, and I have a situation. Not even my friend, who is a medical she is a doctor who came from Poland and Germany, and she cannot get legalized card because she was not taking the job. And these people are waiting patiently because, they won't going to try to get any, medical experimentation. And the application for legal green card is you must take this all COVID-19 and flu shots. And what about? This is medical experimentation, and people are sick. I met, people that, they are vaccine injured or dead. And, what we can do with this, we have to change the policy to allow them to get this, green card that they can obtain and be legal on this soil, right?
Margaret, I could not agree with you more. You're completely right. You have very qualified doctors who want to work in the United States, and come here legally and respect our laws, who would be incredible doctors, but they won't take that jab. And frankly, if they don't want to take it, they shouldn't take it. And you mentioned, the side effects. Look, this is no longer a matter of dispute. Now, it's a minority of people, thank the Lord, who've taken the jab. It's not everybody, far from it. But there are people now, cancer. They're getting cancer directly because of the jab. Women now, fertility issues. They can't have children because they took the jab. You've got especially young men between about the ages of 20 to 30. They're getting, enlarged hearts. Like they're suffering heart attacks and strokes. Now, again, it's a minority. And thank the Lord it's a minority. But, the government doesn't have the right to force you to play Russian roulette with your health. I go back, my body, my choice. Now, and the other thing is COVID is dead. I know it still exists a little bit, but it's been so watered down that it's basically the equivalent of the flu. And we've got so many other medications you can take. Even, for example, Sandy, I think it was maybe 6 months ago, whatever, during the Republican convention, Sandy came back, she got COVID. I don't know how, but she got COVID. And, they gave her some medication, and within a week, she was fine. So what I'm saying is, we've already got everything we need to combat COVID should you contract COVID, and it's basically the equivalent of the flu. So why are you forcing people to take the jab? And we're losing talented people in the process. But notice, Margaret, Bishop Budd doesn't weep for these people that you're talking about. No, it's always the illegals. Again and again and again. Margaret, thank you very much for that call. I really appreciate it. Okay, AJ in Revere. Thanks for holding, AJ, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
AJ.
Listen, yes, sir. You got me?
You're on the air. Go ahead, my friend.
My condolences to you and your family. I lost my mom a year and a half ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And thank you. And she had dementia, but before she couldn't or stopped communicating with me, she gave me my conservative back.
Okay, AJ, do me a favor. Mike, I mean, boy, you love these breaks, huh, Mike? I can just see that. You love, you're like my Fauci. You love to torment me. AJ, can you please hang on? I got a hard break. I'll come right back to you next. 9:49 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Let's go right back to AJ in Revere. AJ, again, I'm very sorry for the loss of your mother. You were saying, though, your mom, even though she battled dementia in the final years of her life, built you, your character, helped build your character, and helped shape your conservatism. Please, AJ, pick up where you left off.
Yes, and I
truly miss the conversations I had with my mom before the disease took over. But to tie into the conversation here, Jeff, there needs to be people held accountable for their actions. This person in the church, what they did was incomprehensible. I give President Trump a lot of credit for maintaining himself and being the class act that he is. This person that did this should be disbanded from their authority. It was totally uncalled for what they did, and they should be held accountable. And as far as the pardons go, as we like to say, Jeff, we're missing a big part of the story here, and that is all this money that the Biden crime family got and were pardoned for. We don't know why they paid all this money. What were they paying for? Were they paying for arms to go, to the war effort? Were they turning a blind eye and letting drugs come into the country? Oh, and I'd also like to say I'm calling from the fentanyl capital of Massachusetts, Revere, Massachusetts, and I'd like to give a shout out to the police, the men and women of the Revere Police Department for apprehending the person that had 11 pounds of fentanyl ready to go out on our streets.
Look, AJ, you really put your finger on it. What were they giving why were they giving the Bidens all of this money? And what were they expecting in return? And it wasn't Frankie, and it wasn't Jimmy, and it wasn't Valerie, and it wasn't Hunter. They had nothing to sell. The only person that had something to sell was Biden, was Joey. And at the time, when this began, was in the second half of the second Obama term. And what was he then? He was the point man for 3 countries: China, Ukraine, and Romania. And what a coincidence, AJ. Almost all of the money that poured into all of these accounts came from those 3 countries, from very powerful oligarchs or literally from state companies, and like in China. And we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. And they bought them. Now, we're going to find out if we do a proper investigation specifically how they bought them. But look what Ukraine got. I mean, Ukraine owns them, lock, stock, and barrel. And what did they get back? $250 billion of our money to fund their war with Russia. What did China get? They got everything. Under Joe Biden, they dumped all their products into our country. They robbed us blind on our intellectual property. They stole many of our corporate secrets. We gave them our finest missile technology. Look, they literally had a spy balloon go across our entire country, hovering above our most sensitive military bases. And Biden didn't lift a finger. And this was done on live television. I mean, cable news, there's the spy balloon. There it is. There it is. Now, you're right. Let's get even to more specifics, Jeff. Because if we keep digging, it's like peeling a rotten onion. It's layer after layer after layer. And you're right. That's why I say it doesn't matter whether they were pardoned or not. We need a full investigation into the Biden crime family. We need to know how much did they sell us out and specifically where. AJ, outstanding call. Thank you very much. And my fellow paisan in Foxborough, thanks for holding, Ann, and welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Jeff?
Good. How are you, Ann?
Okay, first thing with the pardons, I don't understand how Joe Biden can pardon somebody if they said he wasn't mentally fit to go to be tried himself, to be questioned. If he's not mentally fit, he can't pardon people. She could have done it, Kamala, but not Joe. Okay? He shouldn't have that power. He's not mentally fit to stand trial. They're saying he doesn't know right from wrong. Right? That was their assessment to get him.
And that's a great point. Great point.
Secondly, the woman preacher there.
Yes, the bishop.
If I had been Trump, I would have said, look, that's a great idea, but we need more money to do that. Maybe we should take away, first of all, the churches should be actively involved and take in all these people and be accountable for them. And then they should give up their tax-free status in order to accommodate. And see what she says then.
Oh, and touche. And the other thing is, and you touched right, you hit it. These churches, like her church, is tax-free. They get a tax-exempt status, but they're not supposed to be political. Well, if you want to get political, that's fine. You want to be a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party, no tax-exempt status for you? I mean, I agree, Ann. We got to say enough is enough. And no president should be humiliated like this. He didn't deserve this. And that's why he was shaking his head. JD was shaking his head. Trump's kids were just shaking their head like, lady, are you serious? Like, you think you're going to, what? You think you're going to make yourself now the poster child for the resistance by abusing your position to lecture us? She's an embarrassment. And I'm telling you, Trump should have walked out. But he's too classy a guy. Bye-bye.